Kyle Busch's 2026 season is a disaster. No wins, no top 10 finishes for the first 10 races, and a crew chief who was fighting with him on the radio for the whole sport to hear. Richard Childress Racing finally pulled the trigger, and when Kevin Harvick heard the news, he did not sugarcoat it. He said the firing was overdue, but what Harvick said next about Busch's future at RCR is the part that should worry everyone. Let's start at the beginning of 2026. Richard Childress Racing hired Jim Pohlman as Kyle Busch's crew chief heading into this season. The thinking was simple. Busch needed a fresh start, a new voice on the pit box, someone who could light a fire under the number 8 team and get the two-time Cup Series champion back on track. It did not work. 10 races into the season, Busch had not scored a single top 10 finish. Not one. His best result was a 10th place at Talladega on April 26th, and that was also RCR's best finish of the entire year across both their Cup cars combined. That is how bad things have been. But the results were not even the biggest problem, because what came out of Bristol Motor Speedway was worse than any finishing position, and once people heard it, there was no going back. After the Bristol race, audio from Kyle Busch's in-car radio became public. The communication between Busch, his spotter Derek Nealand, and Pohlman was described by Kevin Harvick as unacceptable. The back and forth was combative, it was ugly, and it played out in front of the entire NASCAR world. This is the kind of thing that kills a working relationship. Days after Talladega, Richard Childress Racing announced the change. Jim Pohlman was out. Andy Street was in as the new crew chief for the number 8 car. Kevin Harvick had thoughts. A lot of them. On his Happy Hour podcast, Harvick laid out exactly why this was inevitable. He said the problem was visible from the start of the season. He was not surprised at all. Here's the problem I saw with this scenario. Jim Pohlman's just like Kyle Busch, Harvick said. Very vocal, very rough and tumble, fiery. It never sounded like it was going to work. Two people with the same personality. Both loud, both intense, both unwilling to back down. Harvick said it was a really combative scenario that could not survive. And then he said what every driver in that garage was probably thinking. If I had a crew chief that talked about me like that, I would fire his ass quickly because that is unacceptable. They can be mad at me, but talking like they talked on that Channel 2 after Bristol that week, that was unacceptable. That is the wrong guy. Remember, Harvick knows this situation better than almost anyone. He spent years at Richard Childress Racing himself. He knows exactly how Richard Childress thinks and how he operates when things go wrong. Harvick went on to point out something important about why this change had to happen now. It is not just about Kyle Busch. RCR runs 2 Cup cars, the number 3 car and the number 8 car. When one team is stuck in a constant war between driver and crew chief, it pulls energy away from the whole organization. Everyone feels it. Harvick said plainly, at some point, you have to put the whole company in a better scenario so that the 3 car runs better, so that Kyle runs better. That is the real story here. This was not just a crew chief swap. This was RCR deciding that the dysfunction had gone far enough and that the damage was spreading. So who is Andy Street, and why does Harvick think he is the right person to fix what Pohlman could not? Andy Street is not a new name at Richard Childress Racing. He was there when Harvick was there. Harvick described him as very mild-mannered and someone who has been around for a long time. He has also worked on RCR's O'Reilly Series cars. More importantly, Street already has history with Kyle Busch from the end of the 2025 season. When Randall Burnett left the number 8 car to take a job at Trackhouse Racing, Street stepped in as interim crew chief. In 5 races together, they put up 2 top 10 finishes. RCR has seen what Street and Busch can produce together. The chemistry is already there, and the timing of this switch right at the Texas Motor Speedway race gives them the rest of the 2026 season to figure out whether Busch still has anything left in the tank. Which brings up the bigger question that nobody wants to say out loud. Kyle Busch has not won a Cup Series race since Worldwide Technology Raceway in 2023. That win drought is less than 2 months from reaching 3 full years. Harvick just said the crew chief was the problem. But what if it is not just the crew chief? Harvick believes Richard Childress still trusts Kyle Busch, the driver. He said on his podcast that RCR believes Kyle can get it done behind the wheel. It's just a matter of putting him in the right scenario. But read that carefully. That is the most you can say about a driver before you start questioning whether the driver is the issue too. 3 years without a win. Crew chief number 3 in 2 seasons. Radio rants that became national news. A best finish of 10th place at a superspeedway where chaos does half the work for you. Street has the rest of 2026 to show whether this fixes the problem. If it does not, the conversation at RCR in the offseason is going to get very uncomfortable for Kyle Busch. Now let's talk about the other major story this week, because it puts everything above into perspective. While teams are scrambling to fix broken chemistry and searching for results, one driver has already found his peace with NASCAR, and he just told the world exactly when and where his Cup Series career ends. Jimmie Johnson announced on February 14, 2026, that the 2027 Daytona 500 will be his final NASCAR Cup Series start. 7 championships, 83 wins, 700 career starts, 2 Daytona 500 titles in 2006 and 2013, inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame in 2024, and when he is done, he plans to do it on the biggest stage in the sport. "I want to show up and be competitive," Johnson said. "To have my last race in an event where I can truly win could be that cool walk-off home run." That is the kind of clarity that only comes when a driver genuinely knows what racing means to them. But before that 2027 Daytona finale, Johnson has one more race in 2026 that carries just as much meaning, and it has nothing to do with winning a championship. Johnson grew up in El Cajon, California, about 20 miles from Naval Base Coronado in San Diego. In June 2026, NASCAR is racing on that military base for the first time ever, a 16-turn, 3.4-mile street course, and Johnson confirmed he will be on the entry list. He will also run the Truck Series race at the same event. That will be only his second career Truck Series start, the first coming at Bristol in 2008 when he finished 34th. Johnson put it simply, "Growing up just miles from San Diego, I dreamed about racing here in a NASCAR vehicle someday. To come back home, compete in front of my community, the military, my family, and friends." This is one of those full-circle experiences you never forget. His grandparents were in the military. They are buried at Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery, close to the base where the race will be held. This is not just a race on his schedule, this is personal. We started with a crew chief firing, a wind drought close to 3 years, and a radio rant that embarrassed a whole organization. And now we are talking about a 7-time champion coming home to race near where his grandparents are buried. That is what NASCAR looks like in the same week. Kyle Busch needs Andy Street to be the answer. Richard Childress needs his number 8 car to stop being a distraction and start being a contender. Kevin Harvick said the firing was the right call, but he also left the door open on Busch himself. The clock is running. And Jimmie Johnson? He already knows his ending. The 2027 Daytona 500. The race where he can still win. The walk-off home run. 2 completely different NASCAR stories. One driver searching for direction. One driver who already found it. That is the sport right now.